Hey. Okay, so good morning, and thank you for having me here. The entire reason why we do this is because throughout my career, which is fairly young, I developed a fantastic interest in building things, and I trained as a percussionist. So you are facing 3,000 years of history. And then you grab a pair of sticks and somebody tells you what to do. But at the other end, you can also start with an apple, put a wire into it, connect it to the computer, and all of a sudden, you're making a scale by touching a carrot, a pineapple, or something else. And that became really, really fascinating. And so I thought, well, if it's fascinating for me, maybe we can try and find a way to share it. And this is how the conducted music was born. And in particular today, my goal is to give you the recipe that we have been using so far to try and engage children from challenging backgrounds, which means children that might have any sort of challenge in mainstream education, whether it's language, behavior, economics, or whichever problem they might have. I'm also speaking on behalf of Hannah, who is a special educational needs teacher in a primary school in East London. So here we go. First of all, we do this because of curiosity. So when a new machine becomes available, or a new software, or maybe you come up with something, we try to put our hands on it and see what happens. Usually there is a moment of despair in which nothing works, and then things start appearing. Like on this one in particular, we were invited to play alongside a 32-foot tall robot, which is about 12 meters. It was huge. We realized that it was a fantastic opportunity to go for 12-centimeter robot, 12-meter robot, and we started building these machines with the children. So the idea is that we can always approach the musical instrument or the technical stuff in two ways. One, to hack it and take it to the extreme and see what it can do, usually also breaking it. But this evening, I'm going to show you what I will try to perform with, and it's exactly the same devices that we use with the children. At the other end of the spectrum, we try instead to simplify, to make something that can be taught easily and does not need any complicated knowledge behind it. So we are part of what we like to describe as the makers movement. I don't know if it's a buzzword which is familiar here, but it's basically a collective of professionals, enthusiasts, researchers, entrepreneurs that meet in spaces. Again, the buzzwords are the hot desks, the hack spaces, and so forth. And pretty much we came out of the hack space in London, and we have the music hack space, the video hack space. It's basically different clubs of geeks that follow a certain software or a certain trend. But the cool thing, the really good thing, is that we can pass on this knowledge to the kids, and they seem to really enjoy it because it's tactile. They get to touch it, they get to make their own stuff. And one thing that I really want to say is that we're not teaching what to do, we're just teaching how to do stuff. So here's a box, here's how it works, and now you make it your own way. I was actually running the first part of a workshop a couple of days ago here, where we started familiarizing ourselves to one of these devices. And hopefully by next week, the students here at this university will be able to create some, not just some instruments, but also some compositions and performances. Of course, they would not, oh, by the way, sorry, this is this little friend here, it's called a QuirkBot, and it's very tiny, like probably this big maximum. You can use some recycled straws to create a structure out of it, and it's completely coded online. So it's not complicated line-by-line coding, but it's a relatively new trend which is called block-based. And just to get an idea, you've got colorful boxes that you can drop in your workspace, connect them by a wire, just put a few numbers in, and then you get a robot moving. The quirkball was not a musical instrument. It was not intended for that. In fact, it sounds really bad. I mean, it can only only does sine waves, but you can create a robot with it. And it's a robot that makes sounds. And it's the only one that we actually found, which is easy enough to code for the kids. Of course, there would be no making without breaking. So this is a very simple example. We did a residency in Cyprus, which is a little island in the southeast of Europe. And we took over an abandoned market. We put some tables there, and we invited random people, tourists, people that were drinking outside, and just people that were passing by. This was in the capital of Cyprus, which is called Lefkosia. And the idea was to show people not just our successes, but also the complete failures. So we laid out everything after 2 weeks of residencies, and we were saying, well, this was a complete disaster, this worked, but the idea is, now you make it. So the synthesizers were simple enough. They were built out of maybe 3, 4 components, not more than that. Stick them all together, create stuff, make it, break it. But the cool stuff, what I really enjoy is the fact that you can see it and you can make it yourself. It's not a box that exists. It's a set of things. And mostly they are everyday things. When I mentioned the carrot, is not a joke. We did actually make instrument with the carrot. And that's not making the flutes that, like a million years ago. It's actually connecting with proper technology. This one went quite well, but I have to say that all of this would not be possible without these bad boys here. So we, as a company, of course, we need to survive. And our idea, which is quite risky, but it paid off so far, is to not charge the students, not charge the schools, not charge the teachers, and be able to tap into those pots of population that actually are never exposed to the arts, not to technology, and that unfortunately, this situation creates a spiral that keeps going down and down and down, and worse and worse and worse. So you'll see us working in pretty much the most deprived areas of England. If you think of England as a rich country, no. Take London out of England, England does not exist. Okay, so it's really 2 different countries. Finally, maybe if you're looking for this thing, I just wanted to share a thought. The projects that get funded are not the good projects. The projects that get funded are those that are written in the language of the funders. And that took me a long time to understand. I absolutely hate this, and this has become a mainstream part of my life, and I absolutely hate it. But you need to speak their language, you need to speak their keywords, and you need to understand that they might know nothing about your job. I do have to deal with administrators and managers that are 10 years younger than me, and I consider myself young. And they decide if my project gets funded. So it's kind of weird, yeah? But, what you're going to do. So we started diversifying, okay? Just to paint a picture of what we do. So we work in primary schools with fruit. We work in secondary schools with recycled materials, which we build instruments for. And we do have quite a lot of online tutorials because we really want to be able to approach people that would not otherwise have a chance to talk to us and to have some contact time. So if you're interested in what I'm discussing now, all of those tutorials are available online, and they're all based on free resources, so you can get started from the beginning. So the 2 questions about today, and that's the metamorphosis, was how does technology change the way we learn? And we specialize in a very small sector, which is mostly primary school, elementary school, and mostly for children with special educational needs. The other sub-question, which unfortunately I cannot really prove to you, so I think it's going to be open to discussion, is whether when this technology comes into school, what I feel like is that music is probably one of the major catalysts. It actually is the path for technology to come into education. It might be true, it might be not true, but let's see if I can convince you through this. So last year we started with maths, music, robots. And of course, again, the title is horrible, but it's because it comes from a foundation that is interested in school attainment, so there needs to be maths. The big buzzwords is building tech, so there is robot. And I mean, to be honest, we're all musicians, so we need to do that. We started last year. Very small cohort. This is in Essex. I don't know if you watch British TV. There's a horrible thing called This is Essex. That's the place. They were very young children. This is year 6, which is the last year of primary school. And we taught them for 10 days, and all of these crazy devices appeared on their desks. They had absolutely no idea what they were. But they started creating stuff, and it became quite exciting. The project went well. We went back for funding, and at the moment, we're halfway through this second project, where we expanded, and we have these 80 kids now, again, same age, and we moved into a different area of the country, which is pretty much where you might have heard of this politician called Margaret Thatcher that pretty much destroyed the north of the country about 30 years ago. And we are working in what remains. So you walk through the center of town with empty shop floors, broken windows and everything. It seems like a third world country, just next to Sheffield or Manchester. I mean, this is not far from Manchester United places, right? And this is the actual reality where these kids live. So we decided that we needed to tackle this problem with our weapons, which are art and music and tech. English people really like acronyms, and I apologize for that, but I'll try to explain. DFE is basically the Ministry of Culture, Department for Education. And what they came up with is that this pretty much 15% of the students have got problems, so special educational needs in education. When you take that and you filter through that other thing, which is FSM, which means free school meals, that means if you look at the lower income part of the population, that 14% becomes a 45%. So to me, it's not acceptable that 1 out of 2 people has got mental issues. That is not true. So there must be a way to actually fix this stuff. We try to balance this with this other map of the country, where it shows the red areas shows those that have no exposure to the arts. And the lighter blue are slightly better. Sorry, London is a bit hidden, but of course, it kind of works like that. There is not much difference between this map and the Brexit map. It's exactly the same. So, you know, everything is correlated, and so we try to tackle this issue. And this is our recipe, which I hope will be interesting. FOSS is interesting. Anybody come across this thing before? No, good. So it means free and open source software. To give you some examples, Chrome and Firefox, they all look like they are free, right? Chrome works, and unfortunately you sell your soul to it. Firefox works, but you don't sell your soul to it. On Firefox, you can access the source code, change, and make it your own. On Chrome, no, it's, unless you're a Google employee, that's the package. Other system would be Mac OS as opposed to Linux, or if you talk about phone, iOS as opposed to Android. These are all the same thing. So Android is the open source, iOS isn't. So for us, this is a relatively small project, but I had the pleasure to teach about 1,987 students last year, which is a lot, into 53 schools. So when we go into a school, we can't really sit down and say, let's hope it works. We need to be there in 10 minutes set up, and it needs to be up and running, especially because when you have 30 screaming monkeys coming into your class, you don't really have time to fix stuff, yeah? So compatibility is the most important thing. So my suggestion, our view is, if you do something, it needs to be browser-based. You go to the website and it works, it comes down. Also, legacy, because once you have that recipe, you need to be able to have the children continue on the project without you being there. And to me, that's really important. We've got lots of companies going with fancy equipment. They have drones, they have VR, they have iPads. But when they leave, the kids don't have anything. so they can't continue, they can't do anything. And that is a bit silly, because it's like, hello, here's the candy, and then bye-bye. In this case, instead, we want them to be able to continue, and actually, sorry, build from where we start together. Integration, so if you do any music technology, you're probably familiar with the Arduino, with the world of the Arduino, which, besides Renaissance, is the only other good things that Italy ever did. But also Prosecco is good, So it's very flexible, and it's not just a music thing. It can be used for everything, absolutely anything technology-related. And here are these 3 postulates for us. The machinery needs to be affordable. Again, we put a 70-pound cap, which is about 2,800 baht for the unit. It needs to be compatible, as I mentioned, but also it needs to be a platform. And I like to think about it as a Lego box. You know, sometimes you buy the Lego box which only does one thing, and sometimes you can buy the mixed stuff where you can build your own things. And that is where I like. That's where I like to be, and it's absolutely fundamental. STEAM, again, apology for the acronym. You might have heard of STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But our goal is to teach all of these things through the arts. So that's why that's the A in between. It's the main thing, the mainstream thing. But if you rejiggle it a little bit, you can actually get with teams, which I really like much better. But, you know, just a thought. So the approach means that we can match mathematics, science, through the arts, and pretty much break down the silos of knowledge. So there's not like, this is maths hour, this is English hour. No, we just try and merge everything together as much as we can. And also, music becomes a vehicle through which you learn. So you're not just there to learn music, you're there to learn through music. Of course, because everything is collaborative, you get a lot of soft skills. And that means, for example, teamwork. Sometimes you need to lead your team. Sometimes you need to break your team and rearrange it, because, of course, you know, not always stuff can go right. And in particular, with the kids that we work with, I'll have a couple of case studies afterwards. They build a lot of resilience. I don't know if you know what that word means, resilience. I learned about it maybe 3 years ago. I studied a PhD in England. I have never heard the word of it before. It's a fantastic way to say that when something goes wrong, you have a system to fix it. And the system can be yourself, can be going into the forum, going to Google, going to YouTube, or going to your teacher. Whatever the system is, it makes you a fantastic well, I would say a fantastic human being, because you can fix the problems, not just yours, but the others. And of course, troubleshooting, you know, you've all had a computer, you know, nothing ever works. And through this process, these kids actually, these are actually the kids from the project. They develop some interesting skills. So for example, the block coding, I mentioned it before, if you used Scratch, that's a very interesting platform from MIT. It's very useful, it's very colorful, it's very simple. There is a cat, and the cat does stuff when you put code. Everybody makes it go meow, of course. But this is very similar. There's quite a lot of things. What is actually really fascinating is that in coding, when it's visual, you break down step by step, and there is no way of skipping the steps. Because, you know, at the end of the day, computers are very stupid. They only do what you tell them to do. And for these kids, they really improve a lot of the reasoning in maths, because maybe they understand the process, but when it's time for them to do it, they get stuck. And because these machines actually give you an immediate feedback, so like the robot needs to hit here, but yeah, only gets there. It's obvious that your number is wrong. So you try, oh, if number 3 didn't work, let's try number 4, and now 4.5, and then stuff works. So it joins the reasoning with the resilience that I mentioned before. ICT is a fancy way to say information and computing technology, I think, which means, well, computing, really. And they do have quite a lot of, sorry about that, it's a bit They do have much better knowledge than their peers. Okay? Is this going to stay? No? Cool. Let's see. The main reason for that, unfortunately, is that although it's compulsory for the teachers to teach, nobody bothered teaching the teachers, which is very good because then we have a business. But you know, it's kind of weird, and it feels like teachers are overworked. They don't have a way of doing it, so they just try to hide it. And then you go to university. I was teaching in New Zealand a couple of weeks ago, and people are teaching HTML. I mean, nothing wrong with that, but WordPress does everything for you, so you don't need to know that stuff. You can do other things. I feel. I might be wrong, but by the time you have learned HTML, it's going to be wiped out because something new will come through. So it's probably better to get a mindset that develops all these other skills. And in particular, that I think is the key to why I do this job, abstract to concrete. I was an academic. I was teaching at the uni, and I completely escaped for one reason. I was also the welfare tutor. One night, I was checking in on a student house. They were drunk and having a party. They had my exam the morning after. They did not show up. They were not allowed to be failed. I had to create another exam for them to catch up. And that meant bye-bye university. I'm not coming back. So too much abstract stuff, and let's see what it does. The field where we operate, the technical thing is called tangible computing. Tangible means touching, and it's really good. You see that when they actually imagine, the process starts, but they don't really understand what it is until they see the robot doing this, or the sound coming out of the potato, or actually, sorry, it's a little bit hidden by the piano, but this kid here is playing a video game with a controller that he has designed just using pencils and a piece of paper. And that is really fascinating, because then we then get to do competitions where they are not only good at video games, but they also need to be good designers. Because if your controller is all over the place, and you know you need to turn left to go right and up to go down, then you can't win, right? So you can create all of these engagement bridges, which pretty much means math is boring, science is boring, coding is boring, but wait, if I learn those lines of code, I can actually play Super Mario. So it actually becomes a very good and interesting opportunity. So these are the type of instruments that the kids can come up with. Okay, this in particular is in Bristol, so it's another area, but I thought I'd give you a little bit of context. And the way we structured this project, which is quite new to me, but I think it's a very good overall approach if this is what you're looking to do. It's called the Bronze Art Award, and as imperialistic England always likes, it's part of the Trinity book. You might be familiar with the ABRSM. It's pretty much the same people in different parts of London. So here we go. This is my favorite tutorial, is the lightsaber. The first area is the makers. So you need to learn an art, whether it's the part of coding, whether it's the design of an interface, or whether it's a little bit of performing or composition. So my favorite lesson is the one about waves. You know, waves in the sea, but there's sine waves. If you do music technology or synthesis, you probably come across square waves, pulse waves, quite a lot of patterns. All of these patterns exist in real life, like this smooth sine wave. It could be a siren that goes up and then climbs down, or it could be a windshield wiper that goes all the way that and comes back. A square wave is a light that blinks, like an alarm, or maybe the amber light in the traffic light. But at the same time, it's really cool because these patterns can be applied to movement. So when you connect a motor to this, you can see that the arm of the robot maybe does a pulse wave, pulse like the heartbeat. So it goes like that, that. And it's really good to create percussion instruments. because we're musicians, we also want to hear how this thing works. And you can connect the exact same waves to the light, to the movement, and to the sound, so you can finally hear it. At that stage, you want to control it so that you can do musical performances, and that's where the sensors can come in. Maybe there's a button, maybe there's a slider, or something else. You can build as many things as you like and create an instrument. So the second area is when the children become teachers. And this was here in Bangkok. There's an international school called the Denla British School in North Bangkok. And this was from last year. So these kids came part of their year 6, so again, they are 10 years old. They're a bit older now. They came into the project in the morning. They got the fruit workshop, the one that you saw the pictures. And then at lunchtime, we grabbed them and we told them, now you're teaching the rest of the school. That means about 200 students. And they self-organized in a fantastic way, just 6 of them, to pass through all of the very, very young kids. So mostly speaking in English, sometimes in Thai, sometimes in other languages, because it's an international school. But these kids, the resilience, if this is not resilience, I don't think what it is. They changed in an hour between being students to becoming teachers. And the cool thing is that they were complaining as teachers as well, like, oh, it's a long hour, I'm tired of standing, they don't understand anything, they don't behave. So they really, really understood really quickly. The third area of this project is for them to become an audience. So this is my colleague Sharif. And we did an improvisation with Eurorack, some gizmos there, and piano and drums. And the idea is that you're not a passive listener, but you are an engaged listener. So that because it's improvised, we can musify their ideas. So shall we play fast and slow, or loud and then quiet and then fast, happy, sad, all of those things. Or perhaps come up with a word and then we'll try and do it. So it was always a very, very interesting way of collaborating in this performance. And of course, because of the nature of the synthesizer, they were also able to do cables. And again, because they are touching stuff, it's really, really effective, because you connect the mind to the sound, to the movement. And at least to me, it's really, really a fascinating process. Part of this, they get to talk about careers. But of course, they're 10 years old, so you're not expecting them to go and do a job application tomorrow. The idea for us is that, hey, this job exists. Because if you remember what type of area these people are from, their parents, grandparents, and parents before that, they were working in the mines. That's it. There's no universities, there's no schools, there's no art, there's no shops, there's nothing. So, it's not that bad, of course, but that's the majority, okay? So just understanding that these things actually exist, I think it's a fantastic stuff. And once they have picked up all of these things, that's Anna, by the way, they can find out what other people have been doing with the same technology, or how professionals have created other paths. And of course, we give them a little bit of hints. Mostly YouTube, to be honest, because it's the easiest. But it creates a very, very all-round approach to a project. So I think that this is a really good opportunity for them. So if you want to try it in your projects, I think it's a fantastic approach. On a typical day, so this particular one that I'm talking to you about, it lasts 7 days over 2 years. 10 days. And we do structure a typical day in 3 parts. So there's an experiment, which is quite fixed. So we assign some letters or some directions to the arms and the legs and the horn of that QuirkBot, and it becomes a very simple video game controller. They play Super Mario, you got the nice music, and everything works, and it's perfect. After that, we come back and we start designing an interface. Remember the other video game where there was the kid playing his own controller? So it is really important that we don't stick to one plan and one and only, but then we open to creativity once they understand the basics. There is a fine line there, because if you give too much freedom, they do not really have any experience to build it upon. For example, let's make a parallel with improvisation. It's really looked down on, or actually frowned upon in England, usually, because it's like the random stuff. But if you are an empty vessel, there is no improvisation. I think improvisation is everything that you've got before for a reason or the other. This is the same. If you give them a machine and they don't know what it is, they can experiment with it, but sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of knowledge and then you go ballistic with it. Of course, some experiments work, some experiments are terrible, but this is why we collect everything on a blog post at the end, so that they create a portfolio, and that goes into the examination at the end. Bear in mind, this entire structure can actually be applied to a more conventional music project, but we chose this system because it can be across disciplines and across the arts, so it was a very open-ended project. So here's a few numbers, just to make it set things in stones a little bit better. We had good attendance this is from last year, and 75% of the students actually made a good improvement. And this is the type of improvement. They reached the maths level that they had to reach, 13 out of 15 of them. And that 93% is great, because it means that they not only cover the progress that they were expected to do in the year, but they also went extra. Hopefully through our project. And the same happened in music, where 100% means that they did 2 years in one, which is quite good. And in science, a little bit less, but still good. They did 2 years or a year and a half in one. The Arts Award was the final thing, and 11 of these kids out of 15 reached. So let's put a face to these people. So there's a little girl called Demi. She did double the progress that she was expected. She started as a year 4. She ended as a year 6 in 1 year. So that was quite good. And these are some of her words. Unfortunately, she doesn't write properly, so I cannot actually get you the proper quote from her. But out of what she says in the interviews is that she felt inspired, more confident when doing the troubleshooting, so fixing stuff, independent. And one thing that I really enjoyed is that she said that she felt more successful academically, and that was for the first time. That was really good. I think the recipe of technology plus music created a focus for her which was not available before. This kid was absolutely mental at the beginning. He was really good in maths, but as soon as something did not work, or if you dare tell him, maybe that's not the exact way, he would start screaming, running, throwing chairs, crying on the floor. As soon as you turn your back and do not pay any attention, then he will calm down and come back. Okay, so this was day 1. And at the end, he was able to, so he is diagnosed with a form of autism, of course, but at the end he was able to handle the unexpected. And I've got a very good quote about him that I really enjoy. I'll show it in a second. The key thing that he understood was that sometimes it's not that if stuff goes wrong is because people hate you. And that's what was in his mind. So 2 + 2, 5, oh, that's because the teacher hates me. It was just, sometimes things go wrong. It's absolutely fine. And especially in coding, he was really, really clever at the end of the project to understand step by step, and if this stuff doesn't work, you need to go back and trace your steps again, and then do it. And the absolutely fantastic thing, and this happened in the classroom, is if you started a piece of code which had some sort of repetition, he would not only finish the repetition before I finished explaining, but he would also jump and help other students. Not in a very polite way, of course, social skills are different, but he was actually actively helping in his own way. And another success that was absolutely fantastic, if you're looking to go into teaching, I think this is a brilliant story. So Adriana is a selective mute, which means for some weeks she might not speak, she does not speak to some people, or might actually not interact with children. I discovered this 3 months after meeting her, because we started running the sessions, and she was speaking to me, she was speaking to the kids, she was speaking to the other teachers. There was something within the technology, there was something that she wanted to do that made her jump over her barriers. And it was really interesting. She didn't quite manage to speak to the examiner at the end, which is a shame, but he was really, really increasing her confidence step by step, especially with the unfamiliar adults. And that was quite nice. So some fluffy quotes, because that's always nice. The second one is the one from Matthew that I described a minute ago. So there hasn't been anything that I didn't like. So I really enjoyed working with microbits. That's one of the units that we use. When we did the rock, paper, scissors experiment, it was literally the rock, paper, scissors game played on an LED screen. But the cool thing is that we didn't just play it, we made an experiment to talk about probability. So they were inputting it on a Google form, there was a big pie chart coming up on the screen, they were really excited and they made like 400 or 500 entries. And of course the experiment goes wrong, because probability does not exist. That's the whole purpose of probability. If you've got rock, paper, scissors, 33.3 will never appear, unless you've got 1 million entries, right? And then that's your point of view on statistics, of course. But that is really important. Even though I did get a bit cross, a bit more than a bit, I think, when I didn't record all of my results in the Google form, I still really like the experiment and would like to do it again. I hope to do more projects like this at secondary school. And for me, I mean, it was a very big victory. Of course, everybody likes to play the fruit piano. That's all the big stuff. And I'll read you the one at the bottom if you can see it. It says, I feel like I'm better in maths and more confident to put my hand up. My teacher says that I'm doing well, and that makes me proud. I think it's because I was given the opportunity to do the SHINE project, which is the other name for the thing. Can I just ask for the timing? How are we doing? 5 minutes, that's fantastic. So our lookout into the future is to create something which is very, very tight with the curriculum. Because if we take them out of the class, chuck them into another class, the students, where the topics don't really fit, they might not have enough bridges to connect to what they're really learning. And maybe, it's quite difficult for them to reconcile what's happening. Longitudinal project, and you can see that I wasted my life in academia, means that you are studying over the years. So you're not just going there, you keep going year after year. And that, of course, is a limitation on funding, because there's a double-edged sword. Are we going a little bit of time to a lot of people, or are we staying, making the difference for a few selected ones? And that is always, the balance that you need to have. Finally, which is what our project in Cyprus was about, was to try and squeeze the most out of the technology. There is a very ugly trend in music technology, actually two. One, that the engineer is much more important than the user. So we have constantly new devices coming out, but I never hear of how are these used? Where are they used? Are they actually used? Or are they, I do personally have a stash of new things that I haven't even opened the box, because, you can do it later. But at the same time, we always strive for the new. If violin makers went for the new 10 years after, we will not have 600 years of history. So sometimes it's really good to actually squeeze the most that we can have from here. So here's the kind of provocation. It's also interesting to hear what you have to say. The reason why I believe that music is the vehicle, the catalyst to bring technology into education, is that, number one, there is always technology in the music room. Whether it is a keyboard for playing, for composition, or another separate instrument, or a computer, it's always there. And especially in the schools where we go, there is a subject called design and technology, and they use wood. To me, that's not design and technology. Fabric is not design and technology. That needs to be a little bit more advanced. Maybe the curriculum is different here, but this is why, sometimes I feel like the music teacher is the one that is most connected to tech. Maybe they are a producer, maybe they actually record quite often, or they are recorders, so they have familiarity, or maybe they collaborate with a synthesizer artist or something. And the other thing is probably the most important one is that the business, the music education business, the music technology business is a huge one, whether music education exists or not. And I feel that it is able to channel a lot of resources, a lot of thinking, and also inspire people, because of course, if an engineer knows that the music instrument will have a huge impact, then they're probably really, really highly motivated. I just want to finish with a quote from Hannah, who says hello, of course. She couldn't be here because she's juggling 2 children of her own. And this is the first quote is from last year, which was just after we met, after a few sessions. And she says, so the fact that we were able to use the age-old nursery rhyme, Mary Had a Little Lamb, don't know if you know it, it's Mary had a little lamb, that one, to teach code still amazes me. So, you know, we set up this fruit piano with a banana and orange and apple and something else, and then we were playing this song, so the kids were able to actually make it. And it feels like this bad boy is really scary, because if my parents are not rich enough for me to play, I have never seen it, and it's scary. And then I see people doing a million things with it. So it's probably tough for somebody to approach. 95% of the population hate it because their parents wanted them to do it, and you know it, okay? And at the same time, an apple is an apple. A pear is a pear. And so being able to go there and make music is absolutely a fantastic thing. Then, of course, that's a vehicle to go to this, which is the serious stuff. Finally, this one is a quote which I really enjoyed, is that music is the gift that keeps giving. It's a bit fluffy, but it's nice. Seamlessly incorporating tech to continue to find its place within the ever-changing world of education. So, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that this recipe will be useful for your projects as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Enrico, for reminding us of the importance of reconsidering education and connecting with all the creative ways we have to keep people alive.
Absolutely.
And awake, that's what I meant. I'm not quite alive.
Awake is good.
And I think that's very inspiring to many people here. I know that many of our students are engaging with the idea of using music as a way to educate communities and help people be more connected. So I'd like to open the floor for questions or comments. Oh, I don't know why I guessed you would be the first one.
Fair enough.
I'm just asking, have you ever been working with some of the music faculties in introducing all these ideas? And how do you feel new generation musicians are reacting to that?
Okay, when you say faculty, you mean university?
University, yes,
okay.
Exactly.
There is a very interesting approach, which is teaching a kid, teaching an adult, teaching an undergrad takes exactly the same time when it comes to this. Because there is nothing, you cannot build on prior knowledge, so you are all completely new. To give you an example, the workshop that we did here the other day, it took us 2 hours to get to stage 1. It takes about 30 minutes with the kids. Exactly the same process. Exactly the same. But it's not because the elders are stupid, it's because you start thinking more things. And you start making your own bridges and connection. So there's a bit more interest. At the same time, it feels like sometimes when I do sessions at universities, it's a little bit too late. Because they have been fixed into a routine, and then when you leave that routine to enter something else, it's a little bit challenging. So if they are music technology majors, then they probably know this stuff, or at least parts of it. If they're not, they've already decided that they don't want it. So it's a different, and it's a shame because they go hand in hand. I really hope that this actually helps going through, and one of my projects is actually to create a week-long project with Arduino, because the Arduino, the platform that I mentioned, is really good for robotics, and it's got lots of sensors, but there's not a systematic way of transforming that into music. But you can. So that's one of the things that I hope will inspire students. Thank you.
And just one last question.
Yes.
Do you see that in the future, more music graduates will be much more aware of this and then apply it into their own career in the future? Do you hoping that would happen, or do you see, what do you think of this?
Good question. This is I will answer with somebody else's answer. So there's a fantastic professor called Nick Collins that really works on this, and he's probably the one that got me into this at the first time, about 15 years ago. I asked him the same question. I asked him, I was on the other side of tech. I was the performer, knowing nothing about tech, and I was saying, well, do you think there will still be a space for the performance or something? And he said, yes, absolutely, because there is people like somebody that tells the story. People like somebody that actually does the performance. So I think there will be much more of this if we move away from the laptop. Because if we hide behind the laptop, no. I absolutely hate it. When people hide behind it, no, it's not good. It's like performing the other side. But there will definitely be more integration, I think. Augmented instruments, and hopefully it will be more systematic, because now performers get into technology a little bit randomly. You can't study augmented guitar. It's not something that you can go for, right? But perhaps step by step. If you know a position, I will apply, no problem. And but I hope so. It would be nice. But without deleting the other traditions, because that's really important to keep, I think. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from anyone?
Good. Everybody's shy.
I think everybody's a bit shy. No, yes.
Or hungry.
Give them some pre-prepared fruits.
Yes, of course.
Okay, well, yes.
Videos of the workshop, yes. Yes. If I can go online really quickly, I will. Just a second.
You remember the password?
I think so. Okay. Perfect. Yes, I've got it. The audio is coming through the HDMI, is it? Or should I plug in something else? A mini jack, yeah? Okay. Yeah, I can do mini jack if you want, no problem.
No, the other way.
HDMI?
No, HDMI is fine.
HDMI, yes. Okay, fine.
Oh.
Speakers. Okay, cool. Fantastic. Okay, just a moment. Okay. Perfect. Okie dokie. Here at Conducting Music, we design Create for children from challenging background in Waltham Forest. And we have designed 15 days of workshop, give them an opportunity to experiment as many different types of arts as possible using our Conducting Music recipe, which is using music, technology, and something else. Fantastic. Are you ready to play the game?
I think it's an interactive program with music and technology. Fun, exciting and very interesting.
It's a good start to understand the connections between music and computing.
And mixing technology with music and sound.
All of these workshops actually have been designed collaboratively. Well, for example, just now, Sharif is teaching Foley, which is the art of soundtracking movies.
It's like putting music onto the film and sort of using different sounds.
We're experimenting with the sounds that we downloaded and morphing them and changing the frequencies and stuff.
We recorded our voices and changed them to make them lower and more like a monster.
It's been very interesting to learn how to use Audacity better. It's explaining kind of how the mood is and how it feels without using words.
We start from the manufacturing of something very simple. We have used our own instrument, and we have used the microbit, we use the makey-makey.
We had this big machine thing and we would pull it back and it would send air waves.
And I made a foot and knee piano.
You can see all the different possibilities with the software and the hardware.
At the end of each day, they actually create a blog post. This group of 15 kids, they are actually working towards a certification, which is called the Bronze Art Award.
It's quite exciting because you know there's loads of different things out there.
That's us. And one thing that I just wanted to mention, the music that you heard was from these kids, and they never had music lessons before, and they're not loops. Everything has been composed note by note, so we feel like it's really important to give them a voice when we do the videos as well. Even though, it might not be the best of performances, but it's actually a truly sincere one, which is really nice. I think it's very good, so yeah, thank you.
Can I help directing some of the questions to our colleagues here? Junyan from Yonseo Conservatory.
Okay.
Do you have any, some of the experience you can share with? And I know you are more kind of programming, but maybe something you can share with us. Just share with us, thank you.
Actually, we are going to start something not exactly the same, but using similar things like Meki is part of our plan.
Okay.
But I do agree that sometimes when we work in a conservatories, there are some limitations in a way where, for example, recently I have these modules called Virtual Instrument Sound Design. So in general, where the students are going to create their own sound libraries.
Yes.
And I have 13 students now, where 12 are actually not coming from music background.
Okay.
Yeah, they came from various departments like engineering, science, social science, school of design, something like that, where even some of them, when they approach me, it's like, can I take this module without any music background? I say, you are welcome to do that. Yeah,
Fantastic.
and then for the conservatory itself, sometimes it's maybe compositions departments, recording art departments are the students that are interested on it. For instruments, really hard. I think sometimes it's because of their own education before.
Yes.
Yeah, they have been too focused on their own thing, which I think they should open. Not just on that, because there are more opportunities when you have more things in mind. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, well, good luck with your project.
Thank you.
It's fantastic. If I can add one thing, in the last few years, I did another job as well, which was about knowledge exchange, brokeraging collaborations between different disciplines. So my job was great because I got to interview so many researchers of different disciplines, and unfortunately, because of exactly what you're saying, the most close-minded ones were actually the musicians. We sometimes think that scientists don't want to collaborate with arts, but sometimes it's the art that doesn't see it. So I hope that, with your project, it actually boosts people's imagination. And it's a double-edged sword because, I come out of a performing background, so it's that's the bar, that's the music, do it. But, sometimes it's very limiting, but hopefully not forever. Cool. Good.
Great. Well, I think that's gradually leading us to our lunch break. If you want to get more of an idea of what Enrico does with all this technology, I think tonight will be a great opportunity during the third concert of the symposium, which is at what time again? 6:30. 6:30.
We'll be having the ensemble team, our resident ensemble for this time, for this symposium from Korea. They will be performing some of the contemporary pieces, something from Isan Jung, some from Fred Ledal, and many, many more pieces that combine Western classicals together with the Korean traditional instruments as well. So I'm really encouraged them. They are really well-renowned Tungyong International Music Festival's ensemble. So please stay with us at 1 o'clock, and that will also be an inaugural performance of the new hall, our new hall as well. So it will be on the... Yes, where the building has been through metamorphosis for the last 2 weeks, so you will see that happening now at 1 o'clock. Let's join us for the first performance of that hall as well. And then in the evening, we'll have another performance at 6:30, which is called Music and Metamorphosis. So contemporary improvisations. Enrico will be performing as well, so he's not only coding, but he's performing as well. So we will see that, and then also with our metamorphosized big band of 6 universities getting together as well. So
Beautiful.
Please join us throughout the day, and dinner and all those fun.
Yes. And there's also a secret performance at 9 p.m. in this room, but don't tell anyone. Okay. Enjoy your lunch. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and bring your pets. Yes. Okay.